So, when I was about 20 years old, I decided to go through and try to objectively decide what the best muscle car of all time was. So, I want to tell you, as a Mustang guy, how I came to the conclusion that the 69 Chevy Camaro was the best muscle car of all time and how I was actually wrong. So, first, I want to outline some of the parameters that I was looking at in my determination of what the best muscle car of all time was and what the year of the muscle car was. So the parameters that I outlined for my experiment basically were power to weight ratio, overall displacement, because I was one of those kids that grew up hearing there's no replacement for displacement from all the old timers that were around you. I also looked at handling, which is maybe a bit of a paradox because realistically speaking, um, when you buy a muscle car, muscle car, that's all about straight line performance. So that's maybe a little bit of foreshadowing for you for the issue that we run into down the road and how I was actually wrong. So when I say that I loved the Mustang, what I mean is I watched the 1967 GT500 Shelby Mustang, the one that was designed by Chip Foose for the remake of Gone in 60 Seconds with Nicolas Cage. I was about 5 years old and I fell in love with that car. My mom and dad bought me a model for my 6th birthday. I remember my dad building it for me. I still have the model. It's that one, right there. I don't know if you noticed on my way over there, but I've got a bunch of Broncos. I've got a Hellcat, Challenger, wide body. I've got a Supra and a GR86. I've got a P1 McLaren. I've really turned into one of those guys where, there's a lot of people that are like, oh, I love everything, but I really do love everything. I'm a car guy. I'm an automotive guy. I try to give credit where it's due, and there are a lot of great machines out of there. There's a lot of great machines out there. There's a lot of beautiful machines, and I try to give credit where it's due. So if I had just gone off of what had the highest horsepower, then I probably would have said that Dodge had won pretty early on or something like that, and that's kind of why I looked into power to weight ratios and handling as well, because honestly I feel like the truly great cars out there, it's a balance, it's a balancing act, it's not actually just one thing. That being said, if we're trying to identify what the best muscle car is, then it is one lane. That's why I ended up being wrong. When I say I try to give credit where it's due, I really do. I have a lot of admiration for all of the old muscle cars. The 454 that Chevy had was awesome. The 446 pack that they put in the Roadrunner, that's another one of my favorite muscle cars. Buick with their GS400, that's another one that has a special place in my heart. In fact, that's a picture of my dad and his GS400 back in the day. The 427, 428, and 429 that Ford made were all really awesome too. So now that I've explained all of those things, what I want to explain is that how I came to the conclusion that I came to was that the Ford was too heavy. It had a huge displacement. It had good power numbers, but it was too heavy. The same issue um, with the Dodges and the Plymouths was that they had a huge displacement. They had good power numbers, but they were too heavy. The Chevy, though, the Camaro specifically, it had the lowest curb weight, it had the highest horsepower, and it had the biggest displacement, basically. For what you could get, it was the best package. I wasn't necessarily happy with the decision, but I felt correct. I felt like that was the right answer, and that's what I was trying to find. Was like I said at the beginning, objectively speaking, what was the best muscle car of all time? And so I had come to that conclusion. I had decided, you know what? It seems to me like the Camaro was the best muscle car of all time. So how was I wrong? Well, how I was wrong was that the muscle car segment, like I said, it was all about straight line performance, right? And if you look it up, the Mustang and the Camaro, they were never considered actual muscle cars. Some people, maybe now they're watching the video and they're like, yeah, he's right. Maybe some of you are like, what are you talking about? Yeah, because honestly, that's how I was when I got into an argument with my buddy, and he was like, no, actually, the Dodge Charger, that's like the best muscle car of all time. And I was like, no, man. So, what was the difference between a pony car and a muscle car, you may ask? The difference was that a pony car was supposed to be lighter, more nimble. It was supposed to be a mix between a sports car and a muscle car, better performing in terms of handling. As where a muscle car, as the name kind of entails, was pure, raw, just power, straight line performance. These cars were all about presence. When you look at what cars were actually muscle cars, what cars fit into that category, the cars that we're talking about are the Chevelle SS, the Plymouth Roadrunner, Dodge Charger, the Pontiac GTO Judge, the Buick GS 400, the Oldsmobile 442. Pony cars included the Plymouth Barracuda, the AMC Javelin, and of course the Chevy Camaro and Ford Mustang. So even though, I thought to begin with, the Camaro, that was the best muscle car of all time, obviously it couldn't be the best muscle car of all time. It wasn't even a muscle car. It could definitely have been the best pony car of all time. So that does beg the question, what was the best muscle car of all time? Well, if we look at it within the same parameters that I outlined earlier, there are some top contenders. A few of the cars that I mentioned earlier. The Pontiac GTO, the Judge, that's the runner-up. A lot of people think that the 1969 Pontiac GTO, the Judge, may have been actually the best handling muscle car of all time. But that being said, the 1969 Chevy Chevelle SS, when optioned with the 396 or the 427, made in between 425 horsepower and 450 horsepower, and 415 to 460 foot-pounds of torque, and weighed in at only around 3,600 pounds. It had a shorter wheelbase compared to its Mopar rivals. It had better suspension geometry. It was balanced enough to actually road race. It was the near perfect muscle car formula and widely considered by historians to be the benchmark muscle car. So anyway, that's how I grew up a Mustang guy and came to find that the Camaro was the best muscle car of all time, only to realize later on that the Camaro and Mustang really never were muscle cars and that it was really the Chevelle SS that was probably the best muscle car that was ever made. Tell me in the comments whether or not you agree. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Love you, bye.